Hey there, and how's it going? Welcome to another 5-Minute Friday. Today I'm going to talk about the top 4 smallmouth bass lures that I'm going to use through the pre-spawn. So up until the beginning of May, this is going to be my plan of attack. The first 4 things that I'm going to throw every time I'm on the water. And honestly, I'll probably use these for largemouth bass too. And if I think about it, I've probably caught walleye on pretty much all of these approaches too. So it's a great way to target fish that are in that pre-spawn mode. So I'm just going to real quick run through the 4 different baits. I'll give you a little bit of timing on when I'm going to switch some tactics as well. Let's start with the first tactic. So in rivers, in creeks, bigger stuff where there's some ledges and some depth and some fall off, up until the first full moon in April, which this year is going to be April 6th. So it's really the first week of April. Until then, I'm going to be fishing downstream with the stream, sort of parallel to the shore, looking for where the fish are staging. If I'm in a lake, it's going to be largemouth in my area. I don't have too many lakes that I plan on fishing that have smallmouth in them. So that's where I'm sort of fishing more of the points, right? And so you're going to fish parallel, trying to find the depth that the fish are at. So let's talk about the 4 baits, and then I'll talk about how I plan to change the approach to target the fish as they really get into the spawning mode. So the first one is a swim bait. I like the Fat Swing Impact 2.8. This is still sort of a finesse approach. If you use the bigger ones, you're sort of getting into a power finesse. So like I also have, the Reaction Innovations, and I'm out of my favorite color, which is, I think it's called Sungill, but this is a pretty nice one too. It's just, what do they call it? They call it Shiner. I was going to say it's a Shiner pattern, and that's exactly what they call it. So these are probably my 2 favorites that I use. I have been playing around with other things too, because the Kitex, they catch fish. They are absolutely amazing. But we've all probably experienced, you throw this on for once, you get 1 hit or 1 fish, and it's done. Sometimes it's even gone. And yeah, you can take the time to try to glue it, but then they just rip the tail off almost as fast. So the Kitex work, but they just get expensive because they disappear really fast. That's probably 3 or 4 fish that I caught on 3 baits versus some of the other lures. Sometimes you can fish almost all day as long as you don't lose it. I'm getting more and more confident in my ability to catch almost any kind of fish on a paddle tail swim bait. So that's what I'm going to start with all spring up until the first full moon in May. Number 2 is a bait that I don't have a lot of confidence in, but I know it works, and that is a crankbait. I've got a lot of different options. I think the best solution that I have for bait finesse gear that's a little on the power finesse side, but it's not pushing too far, is this Yo-Zuri shallow running crankbait. I think they call it the 3DR or 3DBR. Gotta get my glasses here. This is the 3DRX, the 50S shallow runner. These are the 2 colors. It's basically Sexy Shad and a Crawdad pattern. So this will be number 2 that I'll go to. If I'm lighting them up on a swim bait, I'll probably just stay with it, right? Why switch if you're catching a bunch of fish? Now, if I'm just catching a bunch of dinks, maybe I'll switch up to this next to see if I can pull something bigger. So this would be number 2, the Yo-Zuri crankbait. Number 3, actually the next 2 are confidence baits for me. And that's probably why I love fishing in the spring, because I had 3 baits already that I sort of felt like I could catch fish on just about anywhere. The number 3 is a spinnerbait, and this year I'm going to try to basically, for the most part, stay with this one spinnerbait. Maybe a couple different variations of it. Sexy Shad color, that sort of is a blend between the chartreuse and yellow and closer to a little bit more like a bluegill pattern. It also does good for shad. I'm probably going to run the Colorado and the willow blade. I think I have dual willow options in this same one. So that's number 3 is going to be the spinnerbait. And this is a Strike King model. And I also love the War Eagles. I just think that this particular spinnerbait, size, color, and everything is probably the most versatile one that I have. I'm trying to streamline a little bit this year and say, this is going to be the plan. And then if the plan doesn't work, then I'll go to something else. And then the 4th one is, if you've watched this channel, you know, right? It's the Nikko Helgrammite. And this is my personal favorite color for spring. It's the UV Black Aurora. I have caught walleye. I've caught almost everything. Trout hit this thing. Even rigged this way on an offset Ned. This bait, I got to the point early May, where even as they were really starting to get onto the beds, they were still just killing this thing. I basically said I should never go fishing without some of these Nikko Black Aurora Helgrammites in there. Now, it's supposed to be a limited color. It's still available this year on some websites, including the Nikko website. So don't buy them all before I restock. It's essentially a Ned rig, but I like the Nikko Helgrammite just because it seems to get bit more for me. I talked about up until April 6th, I'm going to go parallel to the bank. Once you have that first full moon, the early spawners are going to start spawning. And so now I'm probably going to start working towards the bank, like especially, so assuming I'm going to be in the kayak a lot this year. So once that first full moon hits in April, on April 6th, I'll start working towards the bank. I'm still looking for what depth they're at, because you're going to have plenty of pre-spawn fish still staging, but you're going to have some of the early spawners. And to really catch some of those trophy fish, I want to make sure that I get some of the early spawners as well. So that's when I'll start working through there. Now, if these 4 baits don't plan out, the next 2 logical options for me are going to be some type of jig, and I'll probably tip that with a Nikko leech. And then the final thing that I'd go to is just a straight Ned rig. That might just be on a day when things are really tough, but typically in the spring, the fish are feeding really well. And so you're going to get them, if you go as slow and finesse as the Helgrammite, that ought to get them if the other stuff isn't. Don't know if I stayed in time or not. We'll find out. Those are the first 4 baits that I'm going to throw all the way through pre-spawn here in Pennsylvania. Now, your timing might be a little bit different. If you're farther south, maybe that moves up to April 6th is the end of pre-spawn for you. I don't know for sure. Here in Pennsylvania, that May 6th or May 5th full moon should be the trigger to when more fish are in post-spawn than in pre-spawn/spawning. And at that point, I have a completely different approach that I'm going to follow through the month of May and into early June. If you want to see how well these baits work through the pre-spawn, make sure you follow, because there'll be all kinds of videos coming out with these baits. And also, I do these kind of what baits should you use different types a year almost every month. So make sure you subscribe so that you can see those coming too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the water.